I never wanted to be that homeowner, the one. The person who quotes rules, shows up at every meeting, the one people whisper about on their evening walks. I just wanted a quiet life. That's why I bought the corner house. It felt more open, with more sky, more breeze, and fewer windows staring directly into mine. The only strange thing about the property was this big, green transformer box sitting near the sidewalk. It hummed softly, like it was breathing. When I was buying the house, the realtor just said, it's been there since the neighborhood was built. Totally normal. So I didn't question it. The power company maintained it, I ignored it, and for 8 peaceful years, nobody cared. Then, the new HOA board took over. They were energetic, ambitious, and completely obsessed with something they called community visual harmony. Suddenly, violation letters started showing up in mailboxes like junk mail. Trash cans were out too early. Your beige paint was the wrong shade of beige. Even garden gnomes were declared non-conforming decorative figures. It was almost funny, until the envelope with my address arrived, stamped final notice in bright red ink. I opened it at my kitchen counter, and the letter claimed I had installed an unauthorized utility structure on my lawn and demanded I remove it within 30 days. I read it twice, thinking it had to be a joke. Then I laughed out loud, all by myself. An unauthorized structure. That transformer was older than most of the trees on the street. So I sent a polite, neighborly email. I explained that the box belonged to the electric company, not me. I even attached my property survey and the asset tag number from the side of the box. I figured I'd get a quick apology back. Instead, I received a certified letter. It said fines would begin if the structure wasn't relocated. The tone was colder this time, full of legal-sounding, copy-pasted authority. They insisted that visual standards applied to every lot, especially corner lots, because we were the gateway views to the neighborhood. That night I went to the monthly HOA meeting. The clubhouse was packed. When it was my turn, I presented my photos and documents, trying to stay patient. The new HOA president, a sharply dressed guy who talked like he was reading a press release, just listened with this fixed grin on his face. He tapped my photo and said, "That box is disruptive to the neighborhood's presentation," I replied. "It powers the entire block." He corrected me. "Yes, but its placement can be improved by the homeowner coordinating the relocation." A few people behind him nodded along, and I felt the mood in the room shift. They had a target, and now the process was just an excuse to apply pressure. The fines started the next month. Small at first, then they got bigger. Each letter was more formal, using phrases like corrective action and third-party remediation. One notice even warned they could hire a contractor to move it and bill me directly. That's what actually worried me, not that they could do it, but that they might be foolish enough to try. So, I called an electrical contractor myself. He took one look at the transformer and just laughed. "Yeah, no," he said, "nobody touches that except the power company. Not legally, not safely, not for any price you're willing to pay." He even put it in writing for me. The HOA didn't care. They started hounding the utility provider. I know because an engineer from the power company later told me my address had become internally famous. Eventually, after the HOA escalated through some executive channel, that engineer showed up at my door. He wore a hard hat, a reflective vest, and an expression that was halfway between curious and completely baffled. He inspected the pad, opened the cabinet, checked the lines, and took measurements. I stood there, just waiting for him to confirm that this whole thing was impossible. But then, he said something I never expected. "It's absurd," he said, "but technically, it's doable." I just stared at him. He explained that if someone could get all the funding, permits, outage approvals, and grid scheduling lined up, they could relocate it. Not far, just enough to satisfy someone obsessed with sightlines. It would involve trenching, new cables, and a full, localized shutdown. "How long would we be without power?" I asked. "Several days," he said calmly. "Best case." "And the cost?" He just wrote a number on his tablet, turned it toward me, and let me read it. I didn't react, not on the outside. But I knew, right then, that this story was not going to end the way the HOA expected it to. I asked him to email me the formal estimate, and I forwarded it, with absolutely no commentary, directly to the board president. Thanks for watching. If you've ever had a wild story with an HOA, share it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you next time. The reply from the HOA president came faster than any message they had ever sent me before. "Excellent," it said. Just that one word, followed by 3 exclamation points and a request to proceed immediately. They didn't question the cost. They didn't ask about the outage. They didn't ask about permits or neighborhood impact. They saw only one thing: removal. I read the message twice, then a third time more slowly. It felt like standing on train tracks while the horn was already sounding in the distance. I responded with careful neutrality. I attached the engineer's full report, including the outage duration, the risk disclosures, and the cost breakdown. I highlighted the section labeled Service Interruption Multi. I asked them to confirm they understood all conditions before authorizing the work. They confirmed within the hour. Signed forms followed. Digital signatures, approval codes, budget authorization. It all moved with shocking speed, faster than when I once requested permission to replace a mailbox. The utility company, on the other hand, moved like a glacier. Scheduling took weeks. Notices had to be filed, grid routing had to be recalculated, and temporary switching plans had to be designed so emergency services wouldn't lose coverage. Each step generated more paperwork, more confirmation emails, more warnings. Every document I received, I forwarded directly to the HOA, every single one. No summaries, no edits, just the raw, technical, legal language, but nobody told them to stop. 2 weeks later, bright orange notices appeared taped to every mailbox. Bold black letters. Planned service interruption. 4-day window, weather permitting. That's when my phone started buzzing. Neighbors wanted to know what was happening. I told them the truth: the transformer was being relocated per an HOA directive. Most thought I was joking. A few laughed. One even told me, "Good, that ugly thing should have been moved years ago." The tone changed when the utility trucks arrived. They rolled in before sunrise, 7 vehicles, 2 trenchers, a cable trailer, and a supervisor truck. The kind of convoy you only see after a major storm. Workers stepped out with clipboards and insulated gloves. Cones went down, barriers went up, and law enforcement blocked a lane. People came outside in robes and slippers asking, "What happened?" "Storm damage. Gas leak." "No," the supervisor answered calmly, again and again. "Scheduled relocation project." By mid-morning, the digging started. The sound of metal teeth chewing through asphalt drew a crowd. The green transformer stood silent beside the trench like a patient waiting for surgery. At exactly 11:12 a.m., the power went out. Not a flicker. Gone. Air conditioners died mid-cycle. Garage doors froze open. Wi-Fi signals vanished. The whole street fell into that strange, shared silence that only exists when electricity disappears. Just birds and confused voices. People stepped outside holding dead phones like useless tools. By afternoon, frustration replaced curiosity. Parents worried about refrigerated medicine. Remote workers scrambled for a signal. One neighbor ran extension cords from a generator and suddenly had 12 new best friends. The HOA board was nowhere to be seen. By evening, the temperature inside started to climb. Hotels within 10 miles began filling up. Someone printed copies of the outage notice and circled the authorization line, HOA Community Improvement Action, and taped them to the clubhouse door. Day 2 was worse. Tempers shorten when sleep is hot and food is thawing. A small group gathered on the sidewalk near my yard, staring at the open trench and exposed cables like it was a crime scene. I heard my name spoken more than once, usually followed by, "He tried to warn them." The truth travels differently when it's verified. The utility crews worked steadily, methodically. No rushing, no shortcuts. High voltage lines don't care about public anger. The supervisor told me quietly, "We're doing this by the book. After this, nobody will ever ask to move one again." On day 3, the HOA president finally appeared. He wasn't confident now. He was sweating, defensive, and walking fast. Residents surrounded him before he even reached the cones. Questions hit him from every direction. Costs, duration, responsibility, he tried to say. Necessary improvement twice before the words stopped working. Then someone asked about the number. The cost I didn't answer. The utility supervisor did. And the crowd went completely silent. Not loud silent, which is always worse, because silence means the math just landed, and anger is about to choose a direction. Thanks for watching. If you have a story like this, share it in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more. When the supervisor said the number out loud, it didn't explode the way I expected. No shouting, no instant chaos, just a heavy pause that rolled through our group like a pressure wave. 25,000, he repeated, because no one reacted the first time, not including resident accommodations. You could actually see people calculating, lips moving, brows tightening, eyes shifting toward the clubhouse like it had personally offended them. The HOA president tried to regain control. He stepped forward, lifted his hands, and started using words like enhancement, investment, and long-term value. But the tone that used to impress people now sounded thin, scripted. A woman interrupted him, her voice calm but her question sharp. Did the board vote, knowing the outage length? He hesitated for just a fraction too long, and that was enough. Because truth doesn't collapse all at once. It leaks, and then it pours. By that afternoon, the neighborhood message board lit up. Screenshots, forwarded emails, highlighted clauses from the documents I had sent them, the ones they all signed anyway. People discovered the warnings had been there from the beginning, written in plain language. Multi-day outage, grid dependency, resident impact. It wasn't hidden, it was just ignored. The power came back late on the fourth night. Lights blinked on house by house, followed by cheers, then the roar of air conditioners restarting like a fleet of engines. Relief spread fast, but it didn't erase memory. Cold air cools rooms, not opinions. 3 days later, a special HOA meeting was announced. Attendance was mandatory for board members and voluntary for residents, which meant the parking lot overflowed into the street. We ran out of folding chairs. People stood along the walls. No refreshments this time, no cheerful agenda slides. The treasurer looked like he hadn't slept. The secretary kept reorganizing papers with shaking hands. The president arrived last and received no greeting. They started with numbers. Always numbers. The relocation cost was firm, but the new costs were for liability reimbursements. Hotel credits, spoiled medication claims, home business law ceasal approved to prevent lawsuits. The total climbed past $40,000. Then came the question period. It lasted 90 minutes. No one yelled at first. They didn't need to. Precision is more dangerous than volume. Residents quoted bylaws, fiduciary duty clauses, and the very architectural harmony section they had used against Metha that explicitly exempted utility infrastructure. I spoke only once, when asked directly if I had resisted the removal. I asked them to read the full report, I said. That's all. Which was true. A recall motion was introduced before the meeting ended. It wasn't dramatic, it was procedural, signed by more than enough households. Campaign flyers appeared the next morning, not glossy ones, but plain paper with bullet points and document excerpts. Decisions and consequences, side by side. No insults, just evident. The president resigned 2 days before the vote, citing personal reasons. The vice president declined to step up. An interim board took control quietly, like a repair crew entering after a fire. Weeks passed. The street returned to its normal rhythm. The transformer now sat 12 feet farther down the line, almost comically unchanged. Still humming, still green, and still absolutely visible from the corner. Only now it had a small reflective safety marker and fresh gravel around it, which somehow made it look more official than before. One evening, my next-door neighbor stopped while I was getting the mail. You know, he said, that whole mess fixed something. I raised an eyebrow. People actually read the rules now. We both laughed. The new HOA board introduced exactly one visual policy update that year. Utility equipment was permanently classified as exempt, regardless of placement, size, or visibility. The wording was blunt, almost therapeutic. No one objected. Sometimes I sit on my porch and listen to the transformer's low, electrical murmur. It sounds steady, indifferent, like infrastructure usually does, carrying weight without caring about politics. I never wanted a fight. I never planned a lesson. I only answered letters, forwarded documents, and agreed to exactly what they demanded, no more, no less. People call that malicious compliance. I call it accurate compliance. Because the most powerful move in any conflict isn't aggression, it's documentation. And patience. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more.